All right. Hey friends, a little bit of a different day to stream. I have a project that I need to wrap up. I've worked on it to this point. You've seen that if you watched the previous stream. So I wanted to come on here real quick because one, the deadline's approaching, so it's got to get done. Whether I want to invest right now or not is irrelevant because the deadline approaches. Relatable if you are working in a church and you are looking with you got Easter coming down the road. Relatable. The reason I wanted to stream this in particular is because this is a challenge that every creative faces. And I'll be honest with you, I have been avoiding this for a while. So one of the things that I do, part of my workflow as a designer, but also an illustrator, I will invest in a piece and then I will find a stopping point. And when I find that stopping point, I will continue to mull over what it is that I'm negotiating, what I'm navigating in the creative solution process. So it's compositional, colors. Usually it's the process for me stops at a very specific point, and that specific point is when I reach a problem that needs to be navigated, but I don't have an immediate solution to it. So that's where I am on this one. I'm going to go back and revisit some of the previous ones because compositionally there was a lot more going on and they were a lot stronger. So this is one that I created and we have a lot more going on visually. It helps a lot because we're going through these mountains. So my limitation is that the actual locations that are being illustrated are determining what it is that I have to work with visually as a background. And so the reason that's that's becoming an issue, as you're seeing with these other ones, we have different things. We have foothills, we have plains, we have, this is actually probably the most similar in the sense to the one I'm working on, in the sense that there's not a crazy amount dictating the topography. But where I am right now is I'm stuck because I don't have anything in terms of topography really that I'm working with. I have the intersection between the plains and the desert. That's it. So I can go back through and I can look for some topographic elements that could help me. Obviously I have a river as well. But what I'm running into is that I just don't think that's going to be compelling enough. I don't think that's going to be enough for what we're trying to communicate with this I Am series. So what I've done is I've elevated some of these particular elements that say I am. We have each of them represented here. Abraham is the tent. We have I am the vine. I am the way, I think, is that one. Kind of the idea is a bridge or path. And I'm the gate, the good shepherd. So these are some of the I am statements that are happening. But where I'm struggling is the I am text itself. The primary I am is too small. It's insignificant relative to the overarching drawing. And so I've been trying to keep all of my text at a similar size, as you can see with all of these other ones. But what I'm realizing is only having 3 letters is becoming a very big challenge because compositionally it's not letting me elevate what I need to in terms of the sermon title. So now I have to navigate it. So all of that to say, I'm at this point where I need to blow this up. Like that's what needs to happen. So I've been thinking a lot about how I want to do it, but I wanted to hop on here just to rough out some of the compositional decisions because really 2 reasons. The first is that if you're creating, you're going to run into a point in time where you are not happy with what you have and you have to do it almost like a catastrophic rework. You have to blow up what you have and you have to make it totally different. In some cases, erase it all and start over. I don't think we're there. I like these elements around the edges, but I need I am to be much more prominent than it already is. So I'm going to sketch out a couple different solutions here. I'm not going to take this all the way to finished here. At least I don't anticipate that I'm going to on this stream. I have a lot of other things, as I'm sure all of you do if you're working for a church leading into Easter. I have a lot of different things that are on my to-do list to help the churches that I'm working with get ready for Easter. So here we go. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to drop out the I am text. So I have a couple ideas that I want to sketch out real quick. The first is, what would it look like if we blew up the whole layout here and did I am like encompassing the entire board? What would that look like? So that's where I'm going to start. And in order to start, I'm trying to figure out here what I want to get rid of. Maybe I'll just leave what I have here. So the first thing I'm going to play with is, what angle do I want it to be at? I think it needs to be this way. So we'll start here. This is the part that's always this like mental hurdle. I just got to put something down. Like that's what I got to do. That's how you win. Is you start. And I wanted to come back on here for that because I keep saying that that's the case, but that means that I also have to do it. Can't just talk about it. So these are going to be real rough sketches. If I like what I have, I can go back through, and I can clean it up. But this will just give me a real clear view of if I like what I have or not. I can already tell that I like the scale of this being bigger. Like I think that's going to be really important to the success, visually the success of the piece. Obviously people can read I am if it's smaller, but it just didn't feel right, you know? And I think that's a major part of being a creative, is that you have to trust your gut in a lot of these areas. You have to say, I'm not feeling this. This needs to change. This needs to be disrupted or blown up or redone, or I have to start over. And I think sometimes, you know, I'm not a big fan of a efficiency heavy mindset. I don't feel like that helps us as creatives. It turns what we do into a commodity, I think, sometimes. And I think the commodification of art is one of the major devaluers of art. I think I often struggle with just commercial work in general, like doing design for the purpose of just promoting an event or whatever. Like I struggle with that sometimes because I think that there's more power to visual communication than just the logistics side of communication, like come to this time at this place. And so I really like creating something like a series graphic because it has the potential to be more impactful than just a logistics communication. I'm actually a big advocate that the communications team should be working on the core mission driving elements of the organization. And I think that a series graphic fits that. Yeah, interesting. So I'm digging it. I like it bigger. I'm wondering. So what I'm really looking for, so the primary thing I'm trying to accomplish here, I want the text to be woven in more to what it is that's happening around it. So right now, I am is just floating on an island. All of these things around it, they're just floating on an island. And so by making the text bigger, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to force it into the space of these other things. I'm going to try doing this. I'm going to push it both ways. So let's do this. I need to change my background because that'll help me out. I need to be able to see the grid a little bit better because I'm off grid right now. So let's do this. Let's align this a little better with that corner. Let's see if we're aligned everywhere else. Oh, interesting. So the am is in the wrong place. Let me move that up a row. That's going to have to go over. So it'll be like that. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a much better integration of the text I am and the expressions of I am. I think conceptually it gets stronger when you weave those things together. And so that's what we're going for here. Oh wait, those are on the right plane here. Well, let's do this. This is what I was actually thinking about doing anyway. I want to stretch it out even further. So let's take that. Let's move it down to, what would it be? Here, maybe? Yeah, that's pretty close. So then this should go to here. And then we'll clean up the middles here and even get a sense of, do we like this, you know? This is why you got to get it out on paper or on the artboard, whatever language you want to use here. It's funny how, you know, there's been a real mental block for me. I've been struggling with even what I want to do, and I've really been thinking through, why is it that I'm wrestling with this? Why is this challenging? A big part of it is because I've already put something out on paper, or, you know, again, on artboard. I've already drawn something. And so my struggle really is tied to the fact that I have something created. But I don't want what I've created. Like, I don't like it. It's not working. There's a problem. So I have to fix it. But I've been really, you know, stuck on this hurdle of, I got to blow it up and I don't want to. So as a creative, the faster you can get past, I don't want to, man, the better off you are, the faster you're going to be able to move on. And not just from a efficiency standpoint, as much as I don't love always making decisions from that perspective. You know, sometimes you have to. You got a deadline. But let's try notches instead. I want this to be a little bit different than everything else that I've done. This is a really important phrase. Where does it go? Here, maybe? Excuse me. So yeah, I'm okay with this being a little bit different on purpose, sort of a thing. And then let's do here to here, and then here to here. And this is going to go down to maybe here. I feel like it needs to go down a little bit more. So yeah, that fear, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing something. There's a fear of rebuilding that always comes up. Now, when I say always, it doesn't come up every time you need to, but it does continue to resurface. It comes back and it haunts you. And I will say, I've been busy. Like, I've had a lot going on. I don't know, if you're following any of the content that I put out there, you'll know that I have a cohort that I'm launching after Easter, the Creative Leadership Cohort. And so I've been building a lot of the content for that. I just ordered the swag pieces for that, which I'm super excited about. And so my mind's there. I'm working with a new church. So my mind's there, you know. I'm having the internal or the onboarding conversations. I had the intake process. We're identifying some of the opportunities that they have as a team, working through bringing some new people on the team, and so helping in whatever capacity I can in those parts. But it's taken a lot of focus and energy to be sort of present and drilling down into some of those things in that new context. So that's a layer. But at the end of the day, those are all excuses for me. You know, those are all things that I've been saying, oh, I'll get to this later because I have other things that are on my plate right now. The reality is that I have been hesitant to make these massive changes to this illustration because it means that I'm not as far along as I thought I was. And I don't want to hear that. So when you're busy, there are times where you're still going to need to completely revamp something that you've already invested in. And it's okay. That happens, and it's okay that happens. So, you know, the sooner you can come to terms with that, the faster you'll be able to move on to a better solution. So I'm feeling pretty good about where this is going, actually. So I'm taking it a little bit further than I thought I would, because I think this has the potential to actually be the answer. So let's see if that's correct. The other part of this too is that there are times where a rough sketch does give you insight as to whether or not you want to go a direction. But there are other times where you learn more in the finishing process that this isn't actually the direction you want to go. So right now I'm comfortable with what I have in my sketch, but I do feel like I need to hone it in just a touch so that I can get a real accurate perspective as to whether or not I want to lean into it. So once the I am is more prominent in the space, I'm then going to begin looking at what are ways that I can reorient some of these things on the fringes to be able to create more connection between the around the edges I am examples and the prominent declaration that's in the middle here of I am. And so once we do that, I think we'll have a much tighter graphic. Because right now it feels like I just have all the elements on the page and none of them are connected. It's just sort of this random smattering. And I think the better your work gets over time, the more integrated all of the elements are on the paper or on the page or in the design. So if you're at a point where you're trying to assess, do I want to have, all of these different elements on the board, it's helpful to just toss them all on the board. But the difference between a good design solution or a good illustrated solution and a not as good, maybe not as strong is probably the best language, is how tightly everything works together in the piece. Doesn't mean that they're all moving towards the same objective even, but they all feel like they belong. That's usually the measure of a strong piece. So that's what we're going to try to do here, is weave things in a little bit better. All right. All right, feeling pretty good about that. All right. So now we have I am as a much more prominent piece. I'm thinking about just blowing the doors off this thing. Let's do it. I mean, this is that phase where it's like, have zero inhibitions at all. Go for it and really discover if the direction that you're moving is right or not. Like we're running out of time here on this deadline. And so now is not the time to be cautious with your decision making. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to extrude this up. I'm going to go 2 blocks. This is going to be taller than anything else that I've drawn in terms of the height of the text. Almost tempted to go 3. Let's go 3. Exaggerate this thing. Okay. And then I'm going to move it down again because the bottom I am is actually supposed to be on the ground level. It's on that plane. So I need to make sure that I'm not like breaking physics here, because I do have other elements of the drawing that have to exist. So let's see. This lets our bridge appear. This lets the vines exist. They're going to crawl up over. This will put us real close to Abraham's tent. What if we go right up against it? That's kind of interesting. Gives our bridge a little bit more space. Then we're right up against the... yeah, that's interesting. All right. Oh, little scoot at the end there. Man, we were so close. That little scoot just messed it all up. Okay, so what this is going to give us some really interesting opportunity for shadows and lighting, which is going to be kind of fun. So I'm going to reorient these layers real quick because I have my top. Oh, no, that's the right order. Yeah, top and bottom. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go here. I'm going to erase a couple specks that I see popping up that are bugging me. All right, I am going to now... I'm going to do this. This is always the smart step. Don't skip it. I'm going to duplicate this layer so that if I change my mind on all of this, I have it and I'm okay. But then these two, I'm going to squeeze together here and I've created one layer. So now I have my 3D gigantic I am text. So let's start oops. I'm going to start finalizing this and committing. So what that's going to look like is it's going to mean making the dimensionality. And I'm going to kind of clean as I go here. Okay, and then we got a line down here. We're going to run into some of these things being just a touch off, which is fine. We're going to clean them up. I think this is going to be a really fun add to the whole set of all these drawings. So that part's cool. And this needs to get adjusted. And then we're going to have to go through and we're going to clean up some of these internals because these lines aren't going to be visible. Oh, wait a minute. I'm doing this too early. Look at that. No, I'm not. I'm fine. Okay. All right. Whew. Got my perspective throwing me for a loop there for a second. Okay. So that'll be that bar. And then I'm going to start carving out some of this. Let me actually go through here. I don't want to get ahead of myself. If I get rid of some of these other visual elements down below, it's going to mess me up in terms of what I'm supposed to connect to. All right, we're at a point now where I need to turn off everything else so that all I have, the frame's fine, all I have is the text that I'm working with. I need outlines gone too. Okay. All right, still chaos. I get it, but at least we can look and see what we got going on. Okay, checking some messages. I had a bad encounter today with a company, and so I was lamenting with some of my friends. And the only way I knew how to express my frustration in an appropriate way was to create a meme. And so I sent them a meme of it. I bought a grinder, a used coffee grinder, not used, refurbished. And I had to replace it because it's working below my standards. It was not working very well. And so they replaced it, which I appreciated, to say, you know, hopefully this will solve the problem. Got the new one, or the newly replaced one. And they said, yeah. So I said, you know what? I'm having the same issues. Clearly, this just isn't the right fit for me. So I'd like to go ahead and initiate a return. And they said, yeah, sorry. Actually, they didn't say sorry. They said, yeah, so you can't return it. So all sales are final on refurbished grinders. I was like, oh, that's news to me. And they also said they can't replace it. And I'm like, well, you already have replaced it. So already I'm a little bit, this feels fishy, you know? And so they said, well, make a video of it to see if it's a problem. I'm like, okay. I mean, this is literally the same situation I just had, you know, resolved by a different agent, but sure thing. I'll make a video for you. So I make a video, and really what's happening is the grinds are just getting everywhere. It is unquestionably the messiest grinder that I've ever seen. So I sent them the video, and then they write back and they said, hey, we looked at the video and we sent it to our experts, and the grinder is working perfectly. I was stunned. How in the world is this a perfectly performing product when it's spewing coffee grounds all over the place? So I made a meme, and I put the quote from the customer service rep in with the image of the grinder being a huge mess on my counter from one grind. So anyway, that's why I was checking my messages, because they're encouraging me, which I appreciate. All right, so we're starting to get some structure here in terms of the depth of these letters. I already feel like this is going to be so much stronger than the tiny text in the previous version. And so I'm feeling real good about this direction. And that's really a part of why I wanted to hop on here real quick to stream, because it is a trick to get yourself to the point where you're willing to take on these major renovations of a project, especially when the deadline's approaching. But this is the kind of thing that really, as you grow and develop as a creative, whatever you're doing, it could be a song you're writing and you're like, I'm not feeling it. Okay, but we gotta ship it. I understand. I need to get to a point where I'm comfortable with where we are. So that means I got to lean in and get it done. That means that maybe I got to blow some things up and get it done. And it's like, yeah, that's right. That's what it takes in order to elevate your work to the next level. And so really more than anything, there's two sides of it. One, in the midst of the rush up to Easter, hey, you may run into this. I'm just going to encourage you right now. Lean in, and if this is what's necessary, don't be afraid of it. Don't delay solving the problem just because it's going to be work. It's going to be work, and that's okay. There's a balance, of course. Nothing's going to be perfect. This was far from perfect. And so this is why this needed to be done, because it was too far away from what would be acceptable, in my opinion. So there's always going to be that line. Don't just become a workaholic because you're never satisfied with your work. That's not a healthy place to be. And also, that's not a strength as an artist, just for the record. It doesn't make you better as an artist. It means that you're going to develop a level of unreliability and impracticality in order to become a professional artist. Like, that's what it means. So be wary of that. Don't just reinvent for the sake of reinvention, but really intentionally take a step back, look at your work, evaluate it, critique it, assess it. What is the problem that I'm working with here? So for me, I can look at this piece and I can say, these are the specific problems that are happening in this piece. Now I will step in, reinvent, retool, re-engineer, whatever. But don't just do it because, I don't know, I think it could look better. Well, yeah, fine. It could work better, or it could look better. But does it not work? That's the question to ask. Not how does it look, it's how does it work? And so that's why I'm here. This didn't work. And so I needed to re-engage that. So that's the first thing. I really want you to hear that, it's worth it to do this when something doesn't work. It's important. But the other thing I want you to see is I've been doing this for a really long time. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't my first illustration. In fact, this isn't even my first illustration for this church. Like, this is part of a read through the Bible in a year campaign. And so this is, what is this? I'm doing 9 for them total. So I have this one and I have one more. So this is the 8th drawing that I'm doing for this one church in this one style for this one series campaign. And I'm still running into this. And so as a creative, you're going to feel like you keep getting better over time, hopefully, but you're not going to stop having to make these types of decisions. This is a part of the creative process. So be encouraged if you do find yourself at a place right now, you're heading into Easter and you're like, man, I got to revamp this. How is this happening to me? That's because you're a creative. Like, that's what happens in the creative process. We always have to try something, and we're never going to just hit a home run right out of the gate. Sometimes we'll have those projects that we just make a lot of really good decisions quickly and we don't have to do major renovations or whatever. Like, yeah, I get it. But that's not every project. And so that really should be like a delight for us, an enjoyed, uncommon experience. When that happens, we should appreciate it. We should be thankful for it. We should celebrate the fact that it happened. All of that, go out to dinner, whatever. Hey, we had a great day today. I finished a project, and the first pass, it was right. I didn't have to do major renovations. Man, how exciting for you. Way to go. That's uncommon. That's not going to be the nature of every project that you work on. So don't expect it. And so that's the other side of why I wanted to hop on here real quick and stream, to show that this happens no matter how experienced you are in your career. No matter how many of these things you've done before, you are going to run into a time where you're going to need to do a major reinvent of a project, and that's okay. So be encouraged from that perspective too. Okay. This isn't as bustling of a time as when I've been streaming on Fridays, and so I'm not expecting much by way of comments, but if there are any things that you want to share, questions you want to ask about Calm, that's always a piece of these streams. I always felt like I didn't have a pathway to have communications-oriented questions with people that were further ahead than I was in the industry, in part because there actually wasn't a lot of people. I mean, there just weren't a lot of people in church communications when I started, just in general. And so I had to do a lot of the translation myself and learn a lot of these things just by being in the trenches over time. But if you're starting, now in the church comm space, you have a great advantage in that there are a lot of people who have gone before you. And so I don't want to be one of those people that just holds on to institutional knowledge that has been developed over the years by pain and suffering, by trial and error. I want to be one of those people that is quick to be generous around the stuff that I've learned. So if you ever have questions, whether it's on this stream or not, I would love to be, I would love to be helpful to you if that is, if you find that would be helpful. Obviously, I'm doing things formally as a business to try to address this stuff as well. I step in and I help teams, comm teams who are without leadership, interim comm support. It's a big part of what I do. Obviously, all the content that I'm posting on here is designed to be helpful for you as a leader, to grow you as a creative leader. That's really my primary focus as of late has been, how do I help turn creatives from just pure executors into leadership-minded creative leaders. And so obviously the cohort, major piece of that. The goal is to help develop that transition through that 7-week process. Also put you in relationship and in connection with other creatives across the country. And so I'm very excited about that. So that's one formal mechanism. These streams, just trying to share some of the stuff that pops up as I am in the process of illustrating. I've been a really big fan of having to articulate my decisions and what's going on behind it. I think a lot of times creatives are seen as sort of intuitively creative, but there has to develop over time a methodology, like a rationale behind why you're making the creative decisions that you're making. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to replicate it, or there's the potential that you're not able to replicate your work. And so what happens, I remember this early in my career, I would jump into a project where I would try to get a project, freelance project, or my boss would assign me something, and I'd go back to my desk and I'd be like, I don't know how to do this. I have no idea what to do. Over the years, I have learned about myself. I am a learner. And so I will take on any project with great confidence, knowing that I know how to know. I will learn how to do it. I will figure out how to problem solve, how to whatever. And I have proven that to myself over time. I'm able to do that. And so that's the other kind of big part of that, is that I am a learner and I am a problem solver. I can do it. I can figure it out. So I trust that about myself and about the way I do projects. But having to articulate each step has been really helpful, because now I understand what I'm doing. I understand why I'm making this decision, so like, why am I redoing this drawing? Because it didn't work. Why didn't it work? I can tell you why it didn't work. And so those are the things that you'll develop over the years as you continue to pursue it, as long as you're looking back at the work that you're doing. I'm working with a guy right now. He's a young designer, new to church communications, new to graphic design even. And we're having meetings. We meet twice a week. We're going to transition it to once a week in April. But we're meeting regularly, and we're talking through different things. And so I'm showing him different techniques and strategies in terms of how to leverage the tools that he's using, the Adobe suite in that instance, and even Procreate to a degree. He's a really good illustrator. And so, great. How do I walk him through some of these different processes to help him learn the tools of his trade and be able to apply them effectively in a church communications context? So that's been a lot of fun. But the thing that I am working on with him right now is something I would encourage you to do too, wherever you're at as a creative. We're working through critiquing his own work. It's easy for us to look at other people's work and critique it. I actually think it's very, I think it's almost impossible to provide an effective critique of someone else's work just by looking at the final piece. I found this a lot when I was interviewing people for design, graphic design roles or church communications director roles. I would look at their portfolio and it didn't really tell me very much, especially because of how easy it is to create visually attractive work. But visually attractive work doesn't always solve the problem. And so that's a really interesting tension to wrestle through. And as you learn how to critique your own work, you're going to be able to get better and better about seeing how your work solves a problem. That's what's hard to see with external work. And so you can look at a piece and you can say, these are the elements that I like or don't like, that work or don't work. But you don't know what their target audience is. You don't know what the objective is of the series. You don't know a lot about it. And so that's where it becomes problematic to just copy these exciting, or I like how that looks types of pieces. You need to go deeper than that. This series is a great example. The illustration style that I'm working here, it's not realistic. It's not realism. That's not what it's supposed to be. The brief from the very beginning is we wanted it to look like, not quite a coloring book, but like a storybook. We wanted it to look like it was made for kids. Obviously still for adults. We don't want it to be so kiddish that it's missing, those elements of this is, shown in church, in the church service. So we don't want it to be just a children's book. And so, okay, so now what do we do? How do we make that work? How do we develop a style that accomplishes both ends of that? It works for kids or it works for grownups, but it also looks like something that is more storybook. All right, so I finished this and I found a problem. The A and the M are separated more than the I and the A, and so I'm going to need to move. I'm probably going to move the A. See if I can do this with as little need to edit as possible after the fact. I'm going to need to do some, but okay. And so I'm going to move it over, down over 1, and that is aligned perfect. Okay. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to clean it up. So this needs to go up 1. This is going to need to go down. So the nice thing about this is this is going to reveal another line. Let's see how many. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, no, it's not. It's just going to take us down a little further that way. Easy. Easy peasy. All right, now clean up with the eraser a little bit. I'm going to redraw that line. Okay. Back to what I was saying about the style real quick. So when you look at this style, you may say, I don't like this style of illustration. Great. I may not like this style of illustration. Now what? Does that mean it's bad? No. Hilariously, it hits it out of the park in terms of the objective, the job of the piece. And so that's where you can't judge it based on its aesthetic. That's just not an effective way to make a judgment on the effectiveness of a piece, on the caliber of a designer, any of that stuff. You really need the backstory behind it in order to effectively critique a piece. So there you go. There's my little rant on that. So this is where we were, and this is now where we are. Part of me almost wonders if we should still have it vertical, but we should have it really tall vertically. I don't know. I think it's interesting to have it like sit and settle in the space. There's something compelling to me about that. So let's go through here and see how this all works, because I feel like this is going to be the element that integrates everything together in a really effective way. And so I think we might actually be super close to being done just because of this change, which going to be real nice if that's true. Okay. So there's going to be some overlap here with that dimensionality, which is really what I'm looking for. I'm going to rename this to say keyboard. So this is going to be I am, oops, text large. Nope, not carge. And not large, L-A-R-G. Great. And then I'm going to duplicate this because I'm going to start getting my eraser out. I'm going to turn that one off. I'm going to drop that back down into this section. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start erasing some lines in order to make sure that that dimensionality is very prominent. This one can stay, this little quadrant. This word bubble, though, that is, I want that to be over this back text. I want it to be seen in front. I'm going to kind of scrape out a little bit of it here. Okay. We're going to have I'm going to move this tent because I want, is that word bubble? Oh, that word bubble's on a different layer. Did I, let me see here, bridge. Okay, these two, nope, these two belong together. Yep, okay. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to move this. This one doesn't have to align with the grid as much, so it's not as critical. And then I'm going to go here on my color layer because otherwise it's going to mess me up. I'm going to color. So I'm going to fill this in because what I want is I want the layering to happen. I want the text to feel like it's everywhere, and the elements, the expressions of the phrase I am, I want those to be, I want it to all be woven together a lot more than it was prior to making the text that much larger. And so already I'm feeling this feel more connected and more unified. And that's what I want. That's what I'm going for. So is this calendar event? Oh, that's okay. I had a meeting that was going to happen in a little bit here, but it got moved to earlier today. And I was like, wait a minute. I got a meeting right now. We're going to have to wrap this up real quick. But I don't. Dodged that. Okay. All right. And then we're going to erase this. Not erase, but we're going to color back over desert color here. We're going to go back through and color that I am text as well. I'm wondering if we should go purple again. That was a really fun addition. It wasn't one of the colors that was sort of on my radar at the beginning of the project, but as I've introduced it, it's really added a cool element, and I've actually used it quite a bit. Purple's not a go-to color for me. It's always interesting how that happens over time. You develop, it's not that you develop a color palette, it's that you almost develop a palette that you don't use, or you identify a palette that you don't use over time. Okay, so that's good. Now I'm going to actually move these text pieces below and also below, so that way I'm not getting confused. So that way so even if they are on, you won't see them because the color layer is going to be over it. Perfect. Abe's 10. Here we go. I am large text. That's what we're working on. Okay, so this is going to cover that. Oh, you know what's kind of fun? Oh, yeah. I might have it so you don't actually read all that message. I like that. That's a fun little twist. Am I on this? I am on that layer. Okay. Oh, that's really interesting. I'm going to clean this line up just in general because it is a little bit wider than I would like it to be. Oh, that's the wrong ink. I was like, what just happened? I had a color selected that was not the right one. All right. A little vertical here. Perfect. And then this gets erased because the tent will be in front. Okay. All right. And then this needs to get drawn to go out that way, but I'm going to clean up this corner a touch. because I think my tent, yep, perfect. Those little things, I love how they end up mattering so much. Let's get the yellow back in here, make sure those dots are covered up. And then we need a little bit more red here for this tent. Lighting's going to be fun on this one. Lighting's probably my weakest skill set. There's a couple classes I've been looking at, really considering taking, just because I think they're really going to help me out. But at this point, I haven't done it yet, and so whatever, we'll figure it out. But I think we're going to get some fun impact of the light logic here when we go through and do that. Okay, and then this guy over here, he's not going to have much of an implication on anything. I'm going to clean up the line so that it's not sticking out. This is not the Good Shepherd, Abe's tent. This is the bridge. So we're layering, naming your layers. Very, 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 very helpful when you're at this point, especially because there was a little break between when I started and where I am now today. And also this massive redo really does, it makes it hard to re-engage if you haven't named your layers. So it's a discipline, but it's worth it. I've never once regretted naming a layer, put it that way. Okay, I think we are good. Okay, so now we have a couple things that we need to navigate. I really like the way these things have been integrated together. Already it's feeling a lot stronger in terms of an illustration. We have the I am going behind the text. I think that's fun. We have the vines. I'm going to change it so that the vines are actually growing up and over. So that'll be a fun element. And then we have a question with the bridge. Do we want to extend it? I think maybe it's actually okay as it is. I'm going to go ahead and throw some color on here and see what I think of. Let's try it. I'm going to try a dark purple, see what happens. I'm going to do this as a separate layer. So I add this as a separate color layer above the colors. And I'm wondering if I want to use a different brush. I'm going to do a smoother brush here to see if that will speed me up. I'll try syrup. We'll see what happens. Because this is a really great opportunity to just do a fill. I need it to be big enough so I see what I'm doing. Okay. Okay, this brush is working nice. I love how differently, or how impactful, maybe is a better way to say it, how impactful the brushes are in your final look. I think that's incredible. So the brush that I use is intentionally imperfect because I want it to have that hand-drawn storybook kind of look. And so this brush is not that way. This brush is, this isn't, all my line work is above it. That's fine. Oops, a little too much. Yeah, this brush is real smooth. And so this will give you the, maybe more of like it could give you like the Disney, the thick lines, like, I don't know, that kind of, it's just a different look. So I like that. I like how the different ones, different brushes make such an impact. You also really discover over time, like for me, the imperfections, it sounds weird to say it, and maybe it's a liability that I have built a solution for, but the imperfections are really charming, and that tends to be something that I'm able to really sort of drive or to emphasize in the work that I do from an illustration perspective. It's those sort of endearing imperfections that have really worked well for me when I accentuate them. So it's been fun to discover that and to play around with that. And then additionally to find a brush set that complements that. And so this brush to me is much more of those, like, I don't want to say perfect, but it's a much more like calculated swooshiness. That's really a formal term. I feel like you have to be really precise with the one big fluid movement, and that's how these brushes, or this brush, yields just a really compelling result. But if you're unsteady, it is a bad brush. All right. Well, the good news is it's clear that I don't like it right away. So there's that. This is why I use this brush. So let's try the lighter purple. I don't love it. Let's try a darker blue. I don't think I'm going to like a dark color here. Oh, mercy. Oh, let me clean up this outline too, because that's causing some issues here. So this outline layer represents the border line between the desert and the grassy area. Okay. Oh, this blue should have gone over that yellow. Let me correct that. Because the idea here is that is gone. That is under Abe's tent. Erase. Perfect. Yeah, I think that's fun. Okay. It's still more. Oh, we got some up here on that borderline too. It's still a little bit more sparse compared to the other illustrations in the series, but I'm feeling much better about that now. I don't think it's as big of a problem as it was before. So that means a couple things. That means either it's going to grow on me. That's a potential. As I fine tune some of these things, maybe I'll feel better about it, and some resolution in other areas will help solve some of these problems. It could be that shading will help solve it, or it could be that there needs to be another element down by Abe's tent. So maybe what I could do is I could add some shrubs. I think that could be a viable solution. Maybe some plants or some trees down in the I am section, the bottom right area where the gate is. I could add some sheep. That was an easy way to add some definition. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to look up what some of the topography is in that area. See the topography. Sometimes what you'll find is that there's actually quite a bit of diversity or character. So I lived in the desert for a while, not in this desert, but in the Southern California high desert. And we had unique topography. We had some we had Joshua trees, but then we had these giant boulders. Really, honestly, if you picture a Joshua tree, that's what it looked like. There was a lot of open sort of barrenness, but there were also these mountain collections of boulders, you'd say, because we had like legit mountains too. But it was quite a unique place to live. And so you could draw a Joshua tree and all of a sudden it's like, yep, got it. Okay, we're good. So it's real easy to spot some of those topographic uniquenesses. So that is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, here we go, the Columbia River Plateau. Let me see where that's located. Okay. This is a lot of advertisements. Oh, man. It drives me nuts when you click on an image. You're like, I want to see this image. They're like, here's a page of text. That's not. I wouldn't have clicked if I knew that that's all you were going to show me. Okay, so that has already been included in an illustration. That is not something that we are going to do. It's called the Palouse. It's like rolling foothills. Pretty cool. This is the image I was hoping to find. Oh, here we go. So it looks like there are some like plateaus and maybe mesas is how I would describe it. Oh, that's kind of cool. Desert Road in Eastern Washington. Wow. So maybe I could throw in a rock formation. Oh, that's good. I like that. Let me see where. So the other thing I have to balance here, I don't have full creative freedom in the sense that I am I'm stuck with the topography that actually exists, which is great. Like there's no problem with that, but I do need to make sure I'm representing accurately what needs to be represented. Okay. So this area right here is going to interface with another block right here. So I don't want to touch that. So that the range that I have to work with is this area right here to be sort of creative in terms of how I represent desert. Let's see here. So I could throw one of these plateaus. Man, this is beautiful. I don't think I realized that these formations existed all the way up in Washington. When we drove from Southern California to Pennsylvania a couple years ago, and we were just south of Monument Valley in the like New Mexico area, and we could see it, but we didn't. I didn't realize. I always think of that as Monument Valley. I think of it that area, but it actually I don't know if it necessarily extends, but some of those types of formations are visible and present in Washington as well, in the desert area, which would be considered Eastern Washington. That's pretty cool. Oh, here we go. The Great Basin. Okay, that's Oregon. Oh, you know what? Maybe that's what I have in my mind here. Let me see here. So on my map, I bet my map includes like the Pacific Northwest is a much larger region than just the Seattle area, which is where the church is that this is for. So I bet that's what's going on. So I have my building blocks. Oh, this needs to be a lighter color green, actually. I have the wrong color here. I'm glad we're having this conversation. Here we go. Here's building blocks. So you can see I have a rock formation here, or a little slab or whatever. And then these are those rolling hills up in the top corner, the Palouse or whatever. I don't know how to pronounce it. But this green needs to be a different color. That's really good to know. So let's do that now. Excellent. Okay, great. That gives us the correct color. Okay. I like that shade a little bit better anyway. So it looks like we have some freedom down in that corner. I don't remember where I drew this. Oh no. Where did I draw it? Oh man. That's funny. Oh, here it is. It's on the Good Shepherd's layer. Whew. Gonna go ahead and erase that. I was gonna undo it, but then I changed all the colors and I don't want to undo that part. Okay, great. Well, so here we sit with the option of adding an element. So really, this is probably where I'll just wrap it up, because the process of then deciding what we want to do and all that's not critical to navigating these kinds of things. But this is kind of the process of blowing something up, And so from here, what we're going to do is we're going to land the plane in terms of what do we like in that bottom area by that tent? Do we need to add anything, or are we good with what we have? Then let's add some shadow and some lighting so that we match the other stuff that we have going on. I'm going to adjust the vines so that they're coming up and through, and then I may add some element up in this section right here. Oh goodness, I have all the wrong things selected. Up in this area right here. So that will be the focus, and then I may play around with something here as well. We'll just I gotta do some of these other core elements before I feel like I have a clear view of what all, if anything else, needs to be added. But that is, yeah, that's what we got. And I think we're at a really good spot. I think we're a lot better off than we were just a little bit ago. And so that's encouraging. The other option, even as I'm looking at this, it's kind of helpful to have it on the screen up here as well, so that I can sort of, I don't know, something about looking at it at a different place matters. But this this good, not the Good Shepherd, the tent, Abe's tent. As much as I do like the fact that it nestles in, if I do move it out, even to here, I mean, we've kind of filled the space. And we still have enough of a connection and overlap. I think that might solve it, to be honest with you. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to give it a whirl. I do need to check one thing here. The Good Shepherd layer has something. Oh, I bet it's, yeah, I think I know what it was. I was drawing up in this section. Let me see if that missed it. I'd like for that to not be, yeah, there we go. Got it. Okay. Let me adjust this color just real quick, because I think this might be the solution. I mean, this goes back to, I mean, this has been the whole conversation, so I get it, but this really does go back to this idea of, man, just blow it up. Like, yes, there's implications in making this move. It means I have to color some areas again, and I have to erase some areas, and I got to redraw some lines. But the goal isn't for me to avoid work. The goal is for me to solve the problem. And so if I'm not doing the work to solve the problem, then the piece is not getting any better. And that's the thing that paralyzes us often in our creative endeavor, is that we're unwilling to do the work. And I don't know why that happens, but I don't know if I've met a creative where that's not the case. We reach this point where we get so, I don't know if it's that we get so exhausted of the work we're doing, or we're just like, we feel like we're going to lose the work that we have done, or we're going to undo, waste time. I don't know what the specific issue is, but it's almost like there's this laziness that grows in us as we work on a project, and it prevents us, if we get far enough along, it prevents us from actually pursuing solution, because we're so caught up in the laziness side. And it's like, it doesn't make any sense, but I mean, that's what I've seen. So I'd be really curious to know if you find yourself in a similar position where you're working on a project and you sort of know, if you're honest with yourself, you kind of know what needs to happen, but you don't really want to do it. I'd be curious if that's a common trait amongst creatives, or if I'm just lazy. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is, but it's interesting. So let me see what's going on here. So the blue, yeah, okay. So the blue here needs to get colored over. That's going to erase those things, which is great. And I'm going to need to redraw those blue line or those black lines. And then I'm going to erase that. Back to my color layer. Get my yellow orange, my orange juice color, which I love. And then we're going to not be on syrup. We're going to be on this one again. What am I doing? Black lines. Am I on the right layer? Nope. Okay, this needs to go on. Let's do this one, the I am text layer. Okay, that's good. And then this guy goes straight down. And then this is on the Abe's tent layer. I'm going to clean that up. I don't know what this is. Oh, there we go. Erase. Perfect. And we've discovered a little bit more that we're going to have to cover back up. Go back to our color layer. and get some yellow. Oh, that's incorrect. Oh, it's actually the blue. That makes sense. That's one disadvantage to having this stuff on multiple layers, the multiple colors. But in this instance, I think it's still the right decision to have them separated in case I don't want to go that direction. There'll be a lot of recoloring. That's a little bit of this too, is as you're going into a major edit, you can build your major edit in a way that's not destructive so that if you decide I don't like it, so like in this instance, let's say we don't like the IM, the large text, great, turn off this layer and turn off this layer. We're done. We're back to, you know what I mean? We're back to the same canvas that we started with. And so you can build even your invasive and significant, renovations, for lack of a better term. You can build those things smartly so that you're not being massively destructive to the work that you're doing. So, all right, I think that's where I'm going to wrap it for now, but wanted to bring that onto the stream just so you could get a sense of a couple different parts of that. One, you're always going to run into major renovations or major redos when it comes to creative work. It's just a part of the job. It's the nature of the beast. Don't be afraid of them. Don't be hesitant to jump in. Lean in and execute and revise and change courageously, because you're going to save yourself a lot of time in the long run. Also, trust your gut when you see something that's not working. Blow it up. Try something different. Mess things up so that you can get a better final product. In the end, it's worth it, and that's what we're going for. We're going for something that solves the problem. That's what we're trying to do. So, one last idea I just had as I'm kind of chatting away here. A dotted line that goes over the bridge around IAM to the place where the shepherd is, the little shepherd corral, then over to Abraham's place, and then back up over to the vine and the branches. I think it'd be a really fun way to tie in the connectedness of all of these things. So I'm going to play with that as well. But yeah, we're pretty close. I'll hop on the next stream. We have one series after this one that I'm going to be working on. And at the beginning of that next stream, I'll show you where we landed with this. This is due in a couple days, and so I want to make sure that I wrap it up. But we'll hop on to the last one. I'll probably do that on a Friday, not tomorrow, but an upcoming Friday, because those seem to be better days for streaming. But there you go. Good luck this Easter and the things that you have going on. Be praying that you are able to accomplish what you need to. And just that I'm confident God's going to work and he's going to do what he wants to do. And so I'm thankful for that. But go get him.